Yeah.
We're good.
Hey everyone, so my name is Hannah Warner. This week we talked about or learned about motivation, so I went ahead and provide you with a little bit of encouragement on the table. So today I want to discuss three different outlines, or the outline I want to discuss is motivation, social media, and a term called cyberloafing, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but I will tell you about that today. So first of all, there's two different types of motivation that I want to discuss. The first one is extrinsic motivation. So with the extrinsic motivation, you can get external reward. So let's say that you have a partner, and that partner told you, hey, you know what, you're gaining some weight. You should probably lose some weight. First, dump them. Just kidding. But then you decide, hey, I'm going to go and lose some weight because my partner told me that. That's getting external reward, and in turn, you're getting external motivation. Intrinsic motivation is going to be you yourself decide internally, I'm trying to make a decision, I'm going to go forth, lose some weight for a happier and healthier life. So in relation to motivation, Abraham Maslow created a paper called The Theory of Human Motivation. In this paper, he discussed 5 levels of need that humans must possess in order to gain the utmost self-actualization, living your highest purpose. When we connect this to the workplace, this is what it looks like to me. You have your first level of basic survival. In this level, you have a stable job and income coming in. For the security level, that's when you have a healthy and positive work environment that produces a secure dynamic. Third is love and belonging. Once you make healthy relationships within your workplace with coworkers, you have a sense of belonging and you are happy. Fourth is esteem. So with positive self-image and a high self-efficacy, you gain esteem. And lastly, the highest level is workplace autonomy with passionate and meaningful work. So with a raise of hands, who uses social media at work? Come on. All right, just as the survey say, 50% of Americans are cyber loafers, so welcome to the club. Me, myself, same thing. I like to use my time at work for online shopping and interacting with my friends, right? I mean, come on. Makes the workplace more interesting. So studies show that about 1.5 hours of an employee's day is dedicated to cyber loafing or browsing on social media. So let's do the math. 1.5 hours a day is 7.5 hours for the week, 30 hours for the month, and 390 hours a year. Now you're probably thinking, that is a lot of hours wasted during the day. But let me try and sway your opinion. So does social media influence motivation and productivity at work? That was my question when I saw these numbers. How can I go on, if so many people are online going on the internet for personal gain, is it motivating? Is it producing a higher productivity at work? So in this study by Askew in 2012, they actually found out a couple things. First is small bursts of mental breaks actually produces a higher level of productivity. They also found out that cyberloafing had a positive correlation to extrinsic motivation. And lastly, an interesting part of this is that task performance was defined and had different levels of cyberloafing. So let's say somebody was online and they were communicating socially with their friends, they would have a harder time transitioning back into work than if they were just online browsing. I thought that was a pretty interesting decision, or found out like how do these change, right? So in order for us to be professional cyberloafers, we need to understand some do's and don'ts. So how to cyberloaf like a pro? So don't cyberloaf too much and not so you're not completing work tasks. Balance is definitely key. The next thing is that you don't want to use cyber loafing time to harass your colleagues or to harass your family members and to be communicating too much online. And lastly, managers should avoid micromanaging to increase employee autonomy and to create and promote self-actualized employees. So what you want to do is take small cyber loafing breaks throughout the day so that you can maintain a productive mental health space. You want to connect with coworkers so you can create a sense of belonging in your organization. And lastly, have fun. Thank you so much.
All right, let's get the feedback rolling. Yeah, Brittany.
I think your presentation was awesome. Like last time, you have great sense of humor. You have great command of the topic in the room. I also liked how you brought in Maslow's hierarchy of need and how you overlaid it with what that looks like in the workplace. The only criticism is part of that was hard to read at the top. But then I have some questions. In terms of the ASKEW research, how are they rating the participants' task performance? Was this self-reported task performance?
Surveys and self-reported.
Okay, so do we think, could that be skewed at all?
Absolutely, there could be some askew and askew paper, but I do think that some of it does show like that healthy level of cyber loafing, right? If you have a really there was a graph on there, I completely talked through it. Let me just go ahead and explain that a little bit. So they said basically that anywhere between 1 to 3 hours of cyber loafing gave small mental breaks for the employees so that they could have a higher task performance. And obviously too much cyber loafing, they're not getting their jobs, their tasks completed. But like a healthy level, it's like gives good stimulation to the brain. But obviously there could be more research done just to make sure that the answers reflect research.
Did you find a lot of research on this topic? Because I think it's a relevant kind of topic. Is there a lot of research out there, or is there not many?
Yeah, I actually wrote something similar to this at Cal State San Bernardino, and I have lists of research about how the small bursts of breaks increase mental stability and mental task performance. Also, I wanted to kind of go in more depth of if this increases mental health of employees, but I didn't have enough time to even get into that, so I was just trying to give you a base layer of information.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to say that it was really obvious that you practiced. There was a really, really strong improvement from the last presentation. Not saying that your last one was bad, but like this one, you were confident, you were collected, like you were moving around, you were going back and forth. You did that really, really great. My only criticism, I guess, would be when we were talking about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there was a lot of text on there. And so I didn't really pay attention to the text because I wanted to focus more on what you were saying. So like I noticed there were like different types of fonts. So maybe keeping something like that with less text underneath it would have given a viewer, yeah. Okay, so see how it's like.
This picture I actually found online, so
Oh,
I just
okay.
put it onto the screen.
Oh, I got
But yeah, I wanted to be the one to kind of explain it.
right. Right.
But
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so like, yeah, I would just say like, maybe cut back on the text just a little bit. And to finish up with positive, like you look amazing today. I love the whole pantsuit. It's amazing. You rock it.
Yeah, to echo those. Oh, go ahead, Amy. Go ahead.
For me, I don't know, maybe my attention was everywhere. I really love your topic. I really love how you presented it. I think the only feedback I have, especially from the participants, is that there's a lot of movement, and if you're moving around the room too, I noticed the patients that moving around, so I don't know, it's helpful to either not move too much or kind of reduce the animation tolerance. That's well, it's
Okay, thank you.
I would echo the great things that others have said already. Great improvement. Really like the preparation you clearly put into it. I love how you moved to the center of the room, right, and moved around and made it really engaging that way, where we could connect with you. That was really good. Other people already made comments about, small text and hard to read things, but that's simple things, right? Simple things that you could reduce, because sometimes less is more, right? Just keep it really simple on the screen. The content that you were delivering and talking about, I think was great. Really appreciate your mindfulness for time as well. You kept it succinct and really clear. There weren't any slow points or things that came, too quickly. It was nicely paced. So I think you did a really good job. Thank you. Oh, and I love puns. Great puns. That's so good. Definitely.
actually met up with my professor, my public speaking professor from my associate program, and I had a meeting. I was like, give me pointers. Like I was super nervous last time, and she said, kind of mimicked what you said, that go in there and realize that you have valid and good information that you're offering to people, and it's not about and it's about them. Like it's about their experience. So I really was trying to be like, this is important. This is important information. So yeah, good job.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. How are you? My name is Sandra Riley, and I'm going to be talking this evening about rousing our motivation. The reason I chose this topic was a little personal, so I'll share a little bit about that. I don't know if any of you were around for that whole COVID thing, but I realized that during the midst of COVID, it was smack dab in the middle of our PsyD program. Everything went online, and I have to say that at some point during that year and a half, I saw a significant decrease in my own motivation, to read and write papers and turn in work on time and all of those things. And so when I saw this topic as a one that we could present, I thought, well, maybe I could learn a little bit about something and teach somebody else something at the same time. So that's what I'm going to be talking about, motivation. In the pandemic, we're kind of post-pandemic at this point, but I think some of these points are still relevant to what a lot of people are experiencing, and you yourselves might be experiencing as well. And also concepts that can be taken into the workplace. Alright, so not all workplace stressors are created equal. So decades of IO psychology research has identified two types of stressors. Now these are just two of many. It's not an all-inclusive list. So we have hindrance stressors. So basically these are going to be stressors that keep you from being able to do your job. Hey, you might see them as like red tape, or you don't have the basic resources that you need to do your job, or let's see, maybe coworkers that are making tasks difficult, maybe they don't get their tasks done on time. So if we think about hindrance stressors, these are going to be things that we recognize that are kind of feel like unsurmountable. Like I can never get this done no matter how much work I put into that. I feel that way about my dissertation. That is a hindrance stressor for dissertation. So challenge stressors are what I would consider things like graduate school. Graduate school is really hard, but we are all here every week getting it done because we are motivated to do the work, because we recognize that if we do the work, we can achieve the goal that's connected to our values. Okay? So the impact of COVID on self-determination. So self-determination theory has found three three most important components to motivation. And those things are autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Now, when COVID hit, autonomy went out the window for a lot of people. We were told we couldn't go to work. We were told we couldn't go to restaurants and places we like to be. We couldn't spend time with family. So we were kind of living in the space of waiting for someone else to tell us what to do. So it took away a lot of our kind of basic abilities to make some decisions for ourselves, right? Confidence, engaging with unfamiliar technology. I don't know about you, but Zoom took me a little while, to get the hang of. And I had this experience with our church. We did an online 65 and plus meeting. It was the funniest thing to see all these 65 and older people trying to operate Zoom and turn on their cameras and do all those things. So just watching them engage with technology was something that was pretty fun. And related, we had to social distance. So we didn't have access to our friends and our family. We were only on FaceTime or Zoom, or if they just happened to live with you, then you had close contact with people. But it definitely took away our ability to relate to others. And so when we think about self-determination, we have to think about how these three things affect our how self-determination. Excuse me, let me say that again. When we think about self-determination, the three areas we want to start to look at to increase motivation are going to be the areas of autonomy, confidence, and readiness. So, what does it take to build optimal motivation? So now I'm going to talk about things that we can do for ourselves, and then things we could do as leaders, as managers, as administrators, workers in our own workplace. So building self-motivation, meaningful task completion. So research by the Harvard Business School identified that meaningful task completion increases motivation. So doing things that are meaningful to you. I don't know about you, but when I have to do something I don't enjoy doing, it doesn't usually get done fast. It doesn't usually get done on time, or sometimes not at all. So when I do things that I enjoy, I find that it's easier to get them done. The research study found that it increased intrinsic motivation, creativity, spontaneity, productivity, and the one I liked the most was committed to work. Because when we're not committed to doing a task, that definitely has an influence on how well that task is going to turn out, right? So some of the other things I highlighted that we could do for ourselves, motivational control strategies, and those were things like setting goals and then rewarding yourselves for goals. I don't know if you're like me. If I simply write a sentence, I'm like, Starbucks, right? I want to set reasonable goals for the task that you're completing, right? Attention control strategies. So you want to minimize disruptions and interruptions. And that can be done by just doing a simple internal and external kind of self-check. What's going on inside of me? Does my body need to rest? Do I need to take a break? Do I need water? Do I need food? And also examining your external environment. Are the kids running around? Does the dog need to go out? What's going on around me that may be impacting my motivation? And I know many people during COVID did not have a lot of control over that. Like everybody didn't have an office space to go home to. Everybody didn't have a desk and all this area for them to complete their work in a kind of quiet space. And so this was a task for people to really be able to eliminate kind of and minimize these distractions and interruptions. Some emotional regulation strategies. Coming from psychology, I'm going to talk about mindfulness, right? So being mindful of what's going on, some deep breathing, mindful movement. You can do those things while you're sitting in a chair, like tensing your muscles, releasing them. You can do stretches in your chair. Just making sure like you're getting up and moving around to kind of manage the stress that comes with doing everyday tasks. So what about the workplace? Leading to motivate. So putting some of the research into action, making sure that people have the basic resources that they need to do their job. And as I thought about this, it made me think a lot about parenting, being a parent myself. When I ask my child to do a task, making sure that they have the things that they need to do the task so they can be successful, right? But one of the things that's also going to be most important is feedback and responding to their needs. So maybe they've done the task and they have some feedback for me, or at work, or whatever organization they work in, or whatever the circumstances are. Listening to people's feedback. What are they saying to you about the task? What was easy about the task? What was challenging about the task? Maybe their feedback about what they think might make the task more meaningful for them or for others. And responding to those needs when they bring them up in a very mindful and attentive and intentional way. Providing clear goals and benchmarks for progress. So on the previous slide, we talked about having goals for ourselves and rewarding them. So the same thing in the workplace, making sure that there are clear goals that are set and that we are monitoring the progress of those things and acknowledging when that progress has been made. And leader autonomy support was the one that I thought was most interesting. So a leader who is practicing autonomy support is going to be someone who encourages their employees to self-initiate, encourages them to make their own choices, to kind of be the leader of what the task is that they have going on, right? And so there was a meta-analysis that was done, and it found that companies or organizations that had this type of leadership, that it led to a boost in motivation, it led to an increase in overall well-being of their staff, and it also led to positive work behavior and a decline of the stress that their employees experience. So, what can we do all together? I think when we recognize, this is the quote from Richard Ryan, who is the developer of self-determination theory, and he made a statement. He said, where people can feel a sense of autonomy, where they can feel a sense of confidence, and where they can feel connected and related to the people around them, that's where they have the highest quality motivation. So I just want to encourage you to take some steps to help yourself be more motivated, and to also take up some of those characteristics that we talked about that go into the workplace. You don't have to be the CEO or the manager or the administrator or the leader. We can all take those characteristics and model them in our workplaces to change the environment and to motivate others. Thank you. Yes.
Hi, friends. Hi. How are you? Okay, so I've seen many of your presentations over the years, so forgive me if I'm a little bit too critical. I would say I saw flavors of the case conceptualization that we normally do in that presentation. It's not a bad thing, it's clearly a strength of yours. The only thing I feel like I was missing, you nailed the whole simple slides. You know, what are we teaching? I just didn't quite get a sense of the so what. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, who are you talking to? Why is this useful? Like, it was a lot of good information, just not exactly sure who's going to use it and what to do with it. So, it would have been really great for like a seminar class or something. Like, we could teach a whole hour on that, honestly.
Oh, no, it's not good. No, it's not.
Well, I wanted to hear a lot to look at the presentation we have here. The content was great, we know your skills. But when you figure out that we're all
I was actually gonna say the same thing. Just there's another screen right here that has everything on it, so maybe using that one to look at, so that it's more like you're looking at people rather than turning away from us and like moving the slide. But other than that, I really love your use of personal stories or like relating how you have kids and putting that into there. Like it made you more made me be able to like relate with you a little bit better. I don't have kids, but like I could see like what you were talking about. So.
I really love how you implemented like strategies and kind of tools that we can use using what you presented. So that was like a nice touch to what you
So to Sarah's point, because I think it's a good point for all of us, is to create a burning platform. So the phrase came out of a real situation, right? In the late 1980s, maybe you've heard this if you were in Dr. Iverson's class, because he references it, but you're not. So in the late 1980s, there was this oil rig in the North Sea that exploded, right? Huge fireball, lots of explosions, but there were people on the oil rig working. And they were faced with this dilemma, because, you know, oil rigs are really high in the air. So you could either stay on the oil rig and wait for rescue, or you could take a chance and jump, right, into the sea and try and swim to shore safety. or stay in the water and hope for rescue in the water, not on the burning platform. So what ended up happening is a few different choices. Some stayed on the platform, some decided to jump. Those that jumped from their burning platform lived. Those that stayed died. So to create this burning platform notion, to say the status quo, not doing anything, is dead. We have to change, right? We have to take action. We have to jump. I think one simple statistic could have done it to create that burning platform idea. It could have, and I don't have anything off the top of my head, but like something like, I'm making this up, like work motivation is decreased over the last year by 30%. Something of like, whoa, no, that's crazy, that's terrible. From the Bureau of Labor Statistics or some source that you could pull from, one number on the screen to just blow us away. Now there's a burning platform where, man, we got to address motivation or else our company's in the tank, like we're in trouble. So I think, to that end, I think it's possible very quickly and in a fairly accessible, easy way. Others mentioned, you're a very good presenter. I like the content you gave. It was really good. The content, the material. I love self-determination theory. Ryan and Desi's 2008 work on the theory. And since then, SDT is huge, right? It has its own conference. Like it's a massive aspect of psychology, and rightly so. And for IO students that aren't familiar, Ryan and Desi are both in the top 50 most influential IO psychologists of all time. So these guys are IO people. Whether you knew that or not, doesn't matter. But they are huge in the IO space as well, because it's about motivation. And as Brittany alluded to earlier, motivation is one of the most difficult to measure and impossible to change or move the needle on in any way. It's extremely difficult to motivate people because everyone's different, right? We all have different things that motivate us. But I love their theory, and I think there's definitely a lot of support for the notion of autonomy, relatedness, competence. And I loved the example. I loved how you related that to COVID. I love the stories and the humorous aspects of the elderly population and their Zoom experience. Sometimes I felt like that population with my own Zoom shortcomings. So I liked all that. It would be, because you're so just personally engaging, just not turning around or finding a way, to just be here with us would be, added benefit to it. Obviously, the content was very good. So just sharpening that presentation aspect of it, I think would be in your best interest, because it's something you'll likely have to do or get to do. Let's put it optimistically. Things you get to do are give presentations if you do go to conferences or even in your dissertation and things like that. It went a little bit long, just partially. It was about 9 minutes. So just be cognizant of, time frames in that way. So other than that, I really enjoyed it. Like, honestly, the content was solid. I really liked it quite a bit. So thank you very much for a great presentation.
motivation, this week's topic.
So some questions that I had for this week's topic were, what is motivation? What affects motivation? And does motivation differ among older and younger employees? So from the articles, we all gathered that motivation is the need or desire to do something. It varies among individuals, and different people have different needs and things to do that are important. Motivation produces behavior and performance, and it sets up multiple processes and multiple behaviors. So what affects motivation? There are two types of motivation, internal and external motives. Can someone tell me what they think external motives are? Just one person. Money. Okay. And now can one person tell me what an internal motive is? Sorry, what? Right. Perfect. So internal motives are thoughtful motives. They come within. So they are more emotional based, hence internal. And they include expectancies, self-efficiency goals, and they include our emotions and moods. So that's what internal motives are. External motives are more social based and they include like rewards, reinforcements, influence, and culture. So one main question that I had when reading these articles was, how does motivation differ among older and younger employees? So I found this article named Motivation and Satisfaction of Employees in the Workplace by Nigel Russell, Sonja Trent, and Christian Spencer. A study was conducted on the aging of European population. They touched on the importance of motivation and satisfaction in the workplace among age-diverse employees in small varying companies. Motivation and satisfaction in the workplace between different age groups of employees was examined through an empirical study. They conducted 525 questionnaires to randomly selected companies in South America. The survey included capital goods, basic industries, consumer services, consumer non-durables, healthcare, finance, public utilities, transportation, and technology. 400 companies were included in the study, and one employee out of the 400 companies was surveyed. They divided these two the younger and older employees into two groups. The younger employees were from the ages of 50 and below, and the older employees were from 50 to 65. So the findings showed that older employees had highest achievement in interpersonal relationships in their company and satisfaction with their work. Older employees are more motivated to keep good relationships with their employees and their employers. They are motivated by the possibility of training and autonomy and the possibility of mentoring new incoming employees and younger employees. Whereas younger employees showed a higher satisfaction with the speed of work and working conditions such as working hours and working obligations. They also showed that they were more motivated with monetary rewards. So overall, this study showed that both older and younger employees are motivated and satisfied in the workplace, but in different areas. What I gathered from this study was that both internal and external motives are presented in the workplace. Younger employees showed more external motives, and older employees showed more internal motives. So yes, motivation does differ among older and younger employees,
but in different areas. So thank you for listening.
I appreciated the topic. I'm in the very back and I don't know what it is with this room. It feels like we're going through outer space or something. So
Yeah.
I did have a difficult time sharing you back here, but I think that's because of some of the noises happening in the room, so maybe just be aware of that. And I had a question about the research that you shared. Did they say why they only did 2 separation for age groups? Because it seems like for the younger, that could be like a 30-year span, which could account for several different generations within that. Did they mention why they only did 2 age groups?
I don't recall, but I do remember reading below the article that they need to do more research on this.
So I really like the topic. Being someone that's a little bit older in class, that's really something that is really interesting to me because it, it talks about things that, eventually when I go back into the workplace, things that might motivate me more. So that's really interesting to me. One of the things that I think you might be able to improve a little bit on is, so when you ask your audience a question, so if you asked us for an example of like an internal or an external motivation, when somebody gives an answer, regardless of if it's right or if it's wrong or if it's something that you had in mind or something you didn't, something that might help is letting them know, like, oh yes, that is an example of internal motivation and this is why. Or yes, that is an example of external motivation and this is why. So because then it kind of interacts with if you're interacting with your audience a little bit more instead of just like pulling those examples and being like, okay, cool, thank you, now we're gonna move on. It kind of like ties in what they said and makes what they said feel a little bit more valuable too.
All I see is the back of everyone's head, and they're like really focused on their work. So, I can't tell if someone's like about to make a statement or something. Yeah, so echoing that, I think, yes, very good. Something I noticed was in that second slide, from the first slide you were just reading, which, we try and work through, right? We'll enhance that ability to kind of look up and look at the notes less, just the ratio of time. Go ahead. But in the second slide, like as you were asking us a question, you like lit up. You looked out and your entire demeanor changed. It was a really nice moment when you didn't have to concentrate so hard on trying to remember every word you had written down, and you were just here with us, for us, asking a question. And I saw like just a dramatic change in how you were standing, and it was really nice to ask those questions, and people were very willing to interact with you because of that. I think you got answers very quickly from the audience. One, because everyone here is delightful and wants to like support you, but also it was just really engaging, right? Like you lent yourself to be engaging, just looking at us and just being present. So try and find ways to incorporate more of that. Less of a script, more of an interaction. And I think you'll find your presentation ability will increase, but it might even be more enjoyable as well. Thank you. right move, that's all.
Hi, my name is Lorena Gallardo. So before I want to start my presentation, I like to do a little activity with everyone. So I want everyone to close their eyes, right? So you're all gonna close your eyes, and just think about a skill that you're really good at, an activity or a hobby, right? So I'm gonna give you 5 seconds to do so. Okay. So everyone has their one skill, right? And so I want you guys to open your eyes, and then all together, I'm gonna count down to 3. I'm gonna count down to 1. We're all just gonna say it out loud, what we're really good at. Ready? So 3, 2, 1.
Ice climbing.
Yes, I heard shopping. Yes, love that. So I'm sure as you guys got through all these skills that you're really good at, I'm sure it took some time to get there, right? You guys had to go through some challenges, some trials, and I'm sure motivation took place in a lot of those moments. So with that being said, I want to introduce you into the topic of motivation. First, why is this important to discuss, right? So there's factors other than abilities that are going to influence you to tackle these challenges and to avoid and to execute them, to reach your goal. And so there's this one false belief that praise establishes success. However, like I mentioned, there's other things involved in order for us to succeed, reach the goal we'd like to reach. So let me just introduce you to the do's and don'ts of motivation by introducing you to adaptive and maladaptive motivational patterns. Adaptive motivational patterns are basically activities you're going to be involved in to reach your goal. For example, I was in cross country in high school, and I'm sure like many of you guys were in sports in high school, and for me, I really wanted to be part of the top 10 runners that made it to the end, right? And so in order for me to accomplish that task, I needed to think, okay, I have to run prior to practice, and then I also have to practice after practice. And it took a lot of skill, and it took a lot of my time, yet I was still able to achieve my goal because I worked hard for it. And I was motivated. I really wanted to be in the top 10. Something that if I didn't do that, this is like the complete opposite. So I don't think I would have been able to reach my goal by using a maladaptive motivational pattern, which is, let's say I didn't involve myself in running afterwards in prior to practice. Let's say I involved myself in playing a video game that, yes, had somewhat relation to cross country, but I'm not going to benefit if I was to play a game and not actively do something in terms of reaching my goal. So moving on, why are goals important? I'm sure we've all heard this question and even told ourselves this question. Why are they important? I think personally, what's important for us to be asking is, what's it for me? Marketing 101, what can I get from having a goal? I understand if you have a goal, you're trying to reach, then you're trying to get the reinforcement that you want. However, you could be also asking, what can I learn from this experience? So I want to introduce you to the 4 goal mechanisms. The first one, goals serve as a direct function. They direct attention and effort toward goal and relevant activities. So for example, I put up here riding a bike. As you were little, or even recently, no, really up to you. If you want to learn a bike, how to ride a bike, the best thing you can do is look up on YouTube or ask a friend or a family member how to ride a bike, step by step. What wouldn't be the best option would be watching a video on how to bake, because that's completely irrelevant to riding a bike. The second mechanism is goals as energizing function. The higher the goal, the more you're going to want to achieve it. So using this class, for example, and even while we're here, we want to be really good at our jobs in terms of becoming IO psychologists, right? I'm sure a lot of us really want to be the top IO psychologists. And in order to do that, as Dr. Fuller and Dr. Isaacson have emphasized, the best way to do that, to achieve that goal, is to really make connections on LinkedIn, ask questions amongst one another, and to really bounce off of different things you can learn. What not to do is to just indulge in watching lots of Netflix, and as Dr. Iverson has emphasized, Netflix is evil. So that wouldn't be the best option for you. The third is goals affect persistence. This is more so in terms of time, in terms of deadlines as well. And this is also just bringing awareness. For example, presentation. Let's say we have a presentation next Wednesday, which we usually do, and especially reflection. So the best thing you could be doing is to prepare a week before. And that's going to also motivate you to finish your presentation or reflection in order to enjoy your weekend or to do whatever task you wanted to do. Maybe not the best option would be to prepare an hour before your presentation or your reflection, as many of us are guilty of doing, or in this class or whatever activity you like to call it. So the fourth one, goals affect actions that lead to tasks, relevant knowledge, and strategies. What this means is, for example, that I placed up here, let's go back to the baking example. Now, let's say if you want to learn how to bake. You don't know how to start, you don't know any of the steps. However, you do know how to work an oven. And so with that being said, that skill of you knowing how to work an oven can be applicable to baking a cake. And so why I asked you guys at the beginning what skills, what you're really good at, it's because that skill can be used to apply into a future goal that you want to achieve. Maybe you don't know that yet, that's fine. But maybe it can be applicable towards your goal of becoming a really good IO psychologist or a great one. That's pretty much it in my presentation. Thank you so much for your time. Any thoughts?
I don't know.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if this is your first presentation or not, but I just like your presence up there. I got a good eye contact. It engages the audience really well. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Go ahead. One thing I noticed was that you kept clicking through the slides without looking back, and really helped with the presentation. It was just very automatic and going, and I think that audience paid attention. So that was helpful.
Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just to kind of bounce off of that, that was something that I noticed too, that like, I know you can see it up here, but like, all that we see is this, so you just like clicking it showed so much confidence that you're like, I know my presentation, I know what's gonna happen next, I know what's coming up, so I don't even need to turn around and look at it. And your tone was so casual. It felt like you were talking to me and not talking to an entire class of people. The only other feedback that I would have is that towards the end, you were talking a little bit fast.
Yep.
So maybe next time just slow it down a tiny bit. I thought it was really great, very, very confident.
Yes. I will do that. Anyone else? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I told you to take your presentation, but when you have to change, then would you like to go?
Yes. I want to start with a question. How did you prepare in a way that contributed to your success?
How I prepared. I made it personal to me. I think in terms of the 4 goal mechanisms, it was easier for me to relate to exactly what I was talking about, but also to know what I was talking about because I put my personal story in as well. And I think I challenged myself to enjoy what I was learning. So that's kind of what really motivated me to enjoy what I was talking about, but also just set up this presentation.
Yeah, I think it was really good, and I think it showed, right? And it's something I mentioned maybe on the first day or the first week or second, is to put as much of yourself as possible into your presentation as you can. That doesn't always mean like just pictures of you and your family throughout the whole thing. That's not what I'm saying. I think you did it nicely, where it was anecdotal stories that were relevant to the material, but you tried to enjoy the content and in a way that was engaging and interesting and funny and really nicely done. I think that was the reason I asked, is because I think you did a very good job. You're a very strong presenter. So I wanted to ask, like, how were you able to do that so people could hear what contributes to success in a presentation? So that was really, really great. Something I would try to work on in the future is to finish stronger. Instead of saying, that's kind of what I got from my presentation, it's just like, and thank you for your time. Mic drop, you're done, right? Like, just you want to end strongly or in a stronger way, so that because people remember like peaks and endings, right? They remember beginnings, peaks, and valleys, any extreme kind of story or moment, and endings. So if you want to leave your audience with the notion that this was a very good presentation, finish succinctly, strong, in a strong way, and not just kind of meander off, right? And that's not you. Like, a lot of people do it, where you're like, okay, I think that's all that I have, right? And it's like, no, don't finish like that. Say thank you for your time. I'll take questions, side at or something like that, something. But other than that, you did a great job. It was really, really nice.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. While she was presenting, did anyone else have the feeling, and maybe this is just me or as a psychologist, anyone like watching her present and be like, wow, I want to be her friend? Like, she's just so friendly. Yeah, okay, I'm not the only one. It was just like such a friendly, casual, nice, like, oh, she seems like a really wonderful person I would want to be a friend with. So you have that about you. So that's a really great strength that you have. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really good.
Good evening, executives, top management, and leaders, all of you sitting in the room. Have you ever had an employee come into work first day, happy, enthusiastic, motivated? I'm pretty sure we have experienced that ourselves. We come into a new position so excited, so motivated. But one of the problems that we have encountered or seen in our employees is their motivation and enthusiasm to work declines. So tonight, I'd like to present you to a theory or 2 factors of building and retaining enthusiastic employees. First is equity. Second is achievement. And third is camaraderie. Very wordy, but third is camaraderie. Camaraderie. There you go. So the fundamentals of these 3 points by David Serratas, the 3-factor theory, is first, the organization's goals are not in conflict with the workers' goals. Second, workers have basic needs that organizations should try to meet. And third, staff enthusiasm is a source of competitive advantage and long-term results. So these 3 fundamentals are is a structure for business success. So let us move on to the first of 3 theories, 3 points of the theory. First is equity and fair treatment. We want our employees to come to work feeling they are important. And the first thing that we must, as employers and executives, is we must first focus on physiological safety. A lot of us have encountered pandemics, especially now. A lot of people are struggling to make their ends meet. And it is our duty to make sure that everyone is safe. Physiological safety includes such as screening, COVID testing, right? Health structures, making sure that everyone is safe from any viruses or any diseases. And second is economic security. We want our employees to feel that their compensation is met, or they have fair compensation, they have financial support, and especially we have equal working opportunities. And another point that Seratus included is we as employers have to focus on looking at alternative ways before layoffs is executed, making sure that we have exhausted any tools or things before we need to let go of an employee. Third is psychological health. We know how important mental health is, especially for employees. Burnout, especially during COVID, a lot of stressors from our family, friends who might have died. It is our duty to provide resources, tools that will help them from these strategies. Second is achievement. We must recognize the accomplishments of our employees. We need to affirm the purpose, why they are working in our company, why they are important to be here with us. We must recognize the things that they are good at, and especially things that we can criticize and help them grow. Second is enabling a positive working environment, eliminating bureaucracy and hierarchy. We don't want employees to come to work having a flight or fight mode, right? We don't want them to come to work in a competitive mode. We want equal opportunity, eliminating things that will hinder the progress of the company. Third is making challenging tasks. Designing work that enriches employee growth. Things like workshops, trainings, collaborations with other companies, things that will enable growth. Having a growth mindset for employees is important to help them achieve the things that they need. And last but not least, the third is camaraderie. Creating a partnership culture. We want a community of teamwork that produces a lot of things that is beneficial for the whole company. We want a community of teamwork. We want a community where employees can rely on each other. And it is our duty to cultivate that culture. Another thing that was pointed out is we must have procedures, mechanisms to settle disagreements. Have a solution where it is needed when there's conflicts within our organization. Equity, achievement, and camaraderie are three factors of building, maintaining enthusiastic employees. And this, all three desirable outcomes can result in enthusiasm towards accomplishing the goals of the organization, resulting to higher job satisfaction, productivity, and motivation. And these are the few things to keep in mind with this theory. First, they are not independent of each other. You can't have an employer say it is a working partnership culture without focusing on hearing what the employee's problems are. It is not independent of each other. We must work together to sustain and maintain enthusiastic employees. Second, this theory is understood by assuming that employees started out as motivated. It is an application of the theory happens when motivation is disrupted. Third is fostering a partnership culture. Relationship in the workplace creates a psychological and economical gains. And lastly, change starts from the actions of top management. From us in this room right here, we make the biggest difference. And it is our duty to have an equitable, achieving, and camaraderie culture within our organization. And in this slide, I provided a QR code if you want to learn more about the information about this theory. And for the rest of my presentation, I'll end with this. Thank you.
was really good. Definitely had a really good knowledge of the topic. I felt like you were really flowing energy, like barely had to look at your cards. I would say, like anything that could be, I guess, did so well that you were like swaying back and forth a lot. So just like make sure that the movement that you have is like intentional, I guess. But other than that, it's good.
I really enjoyed your presentation. You were super professional, very formal, you know what you were talking about. The only thing for me was, it was like a little less hard, it was a little more hard to follow than your last week presentation. You had so much to cover, you were a little more like, you seemed like you were having a lot more fun. So.
Yeah, I really like the topic. I think the topic is really, really awesome. I think that enthusiasm isn't something that, to me personally, I haven't heard a lot about in the workplace, so that was really interesting. A little bit of feedback for what you might improve on next time is to have a transition. So you went from so there was like the three things that most affected enthusiasm. So you went from the first one and then jumped right into the second one. So if you had like a transition sentence that was like, the second most important factor in maintaining and establishing enthusiasm in the workplace is achievement. So just something like that to kind of transition us and let us know that you're going from that first factor to that second factor.
I just want to start by saying, I appreciate you already, coming back up and doing another presentation from last week and already implementing those changes that we spoke about last week. And I think your presentation this week, showed how much you were able to grow in just, a week, and you did a great job. I did notice that in Dr. Iverson's class, you didn't really need the notes during that presentation that we did as much. And I think you're a great presenter, and I think you'll really hit that next level if you don't have to look down at those notes as much.
Bouncing off with what you said, I just wanted to change my kind of approach to presenting. So it was a challenge, kind of being more professional than I was the first presenter. But it was just something that I challenged myself.
You definitely were super professional, credibility super high.
I thought you did a good job with the leadership of the side, more personal. You mentioned you can also be that professional. Curious, I feel like it's really comfortable to balance, especially
Yeah. One, you look very professional, so I appreciate that. You look great. So men take note. Joser's looking sharp. That's how you dress to impress and look good up there. Something else I would say, as I'm interpreting it, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the approach that you took on this particular presentation was to change the audience. We were top management leaders or people with executive decision-making positions, correct?
Yeah.
So when that's your audience, you want to speak a little bit differently. The content needs to be a little bit different. This content is really good for, I would say, an audience like this. As you increase in level, what I mean is decision-making level, you often need to increase in abstraction. So there's more metaphor and there's more examples, anecdotes, or stories. It's a better way to teach or express an idea to people in those positions, according to the research literature, because there's a little bit different role that they perform. And so giving them this information, while valuable and interesting, I think typically in those environments, you're better off having a story, giving a specific example and story of, imagine Jeff. This is Jeff. He's in the workplace. This is what enthusiasm looks like in these different domains. This is what the cost is for not supporting that enthusiasm. This is what it could look like On the downside, this is what it looks like with full support, so that those people would understand it readily, and I think you'd convey the information more potently, right, with more potency in it. So, just some feedback for you there. Very good. Thank you for your presentation.
Dr. Polish, are you saying you have to dumb it down because those CEOs are not small?
No, quite different. I would say the abstract part, the specific, like here's the roadmap for this particular strategy. Wow, that could be really effective in like a strategy meeting or like something like that, and it has its place. When you're talking to a board of people that are making executive decisions, it's generally a better idea because they need to try and use what you're conveying to them, and it's hard to do that. It's hard to action this kind of information. It's valuable, but they might not connect the dots. I don't know if I'd say dumb it down, but they might not connect the dots in the same way. Exactly. I think the real benefit of examples, abstraction, metaphor, is that it becomes the onus of like making it relevant to you is a little bit easier. You don't have to do any like mental storylines or like, you don't have to calculate for yourself like, how this makes sense. You see a story and you clearly could apply like that. I just think it makes it easier for them to digest and actually do something with that information. And I believe Dr. Shuk was telling me you have quite a unique data set, right? Of university like executive presidents, things like that. So are you looking to give them feedback again? Yeah. Like is it going to come full circle? Like you're going to analyze the data and then give them back some type of
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Nice. Do your questions from today, do they relate to your dissertation or to your current job? Or neither? That's great. Great. How about after this presentation, we'll take like a 5-minute break for about maybe 7. We'll make it 7-minute break after this presentation. All right. Make it. I'm gonna time it though.
It's more realistic, which is concerning.
Hi guys, my name is Hayden. I'm going to be presenting on this week's reflections about our close information.
So today's agenda, what I'm gonna cover is what's motivation, the importance of it, motivation in the workplace, and how to stay motivated. So in the article with Mitchell and Daniels, we were able to see that the definition for motivation in that article was that motivation varies across the individual and appears to combine with ability to produce, sorry, I cannot do that, produce performance. And in the bigger article, it says motivation is the energy a person expands in relation to work. And then in the Darling and Salis article, it said that motivation means an inner desire to make an effort. Okay, so what is motivation? So one, motivation produces effort. People work harder when they're motivated, and motivation results in persistence. Also, higher motivation results in a longer effort of being sustained. Motivation is linked to having goals, and it contributes to the individual performance. So now we're going to move on to motivation in the workplace. So motivation influences the amount of effort that is likely to put forth within individuals. You'll have hardworking employees when they're motivated, and a work setting can influence behavior either directly or through motivation. So all of that in the workplace will give you satisfied employees, and that will result in high job satisfaction. And then lastly, how to stay motivated. So you have to love what you do, put in the effort, set goals for yourself, set time apart for me time, and celebrate your victories at work. These are my references. So,
I really liked how clear and concise your presentation was. It was very fast. It was still informational. I would say that maybe on that last slide where you had the 6 how to stay motivated, maybe you could just give it a quick example of maybe how you do that for yourself, to just make a personal goal and I guess go further into that because it's really but it was really good.
I think it's great, you're like the only person who presented in 5 minutes.
Yeah, so I think for the words on the boxes, it was kind of hard to see. So maybe try the letters in a different color so it is more readable for viewers maybe in the back. So yeah, that's something that I'll be doing for the next presentation.
Maybe practicing it on the screen for yourself too, because I noticed that you were reading off the screen and then you even kind of said oh, I can't even read that. So if you had put it up before class or something just to make sure that everything you could read too. But then also I did notice that you were reading off this screen. Once you did that, I couldn't hear you because you were looking that way, but once you started looking this way, your projection was so much better and you had more confidence. So every time you went and looked back at the screen, it kind of showed, it kind of gave the impression that you weren't that confident. But then once you would turn around to us and speak, it was just so much more impactful. So, but overall, good job.
I would say the font size, thank you, that's on the screen right now. You want to make sure that people in the back of the room can see it without any strain, without any difficulty there. There shouldn't really be a wall of text at any point. Your goal is to try and get to a point where you can articulate the information that needing to be written on the screen, and it could be resembled by some image or some idea or a small amount of text or bullet points. But the font size that you have for thank you, just for yourself, because you have the file, you know it, that I would go for as that or maybe slightly smaller is the absolute smallest you should go. Right? Your goal is to make it large, easily readable, and so that we stay with you for the content, not try and read everything on the screen. I don't remember who it was because I was busy typing. I think it was maybe Miani or someone that said a story would be really good. You have these 6 or 7 points. Love yourself, give yourself me time, stay, how to stay motivated. All of that's great, but as far as just words on the screen and then you saying them, there's not much expanding on that. In a story, some example, some way to describe what that might look like would be really helpful and kind of informative. And it also would add, I think it was maybe, I didn't check the time, but it might have been a little bit short. And it might just add a little bit of important context and depth to the presentation itself. But I appreciate a brief presentation, and I appreciate that you did it really well. So just keep an eye out for the text size, the font color, and make sure it's easy to read. Otherwise, very good job. Thank you. All right, let's take 7 minutes. 7 minutes, go to the bathroom, walk around, stretch, do what you got to do. 7 minutes, yes. The next person, please get ready.
Isn't that Halloween now? Like all the yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like it was like, okay, so like, as I'm getting older, I'm not really into like.
Last year I was,
really into, but that's